An economist with Argon Asset Management. Great to have you with us, Tubby. So this debate goes on. We will know in September the actual figures for the second quarter of the year will come out. What's your view?
So I don't think that we'll be in a recession, which is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. I expect actually the second quarter to have relatively strong growth compared to the contraction that we had in the first quarter of minus 1.2%. So what we saw in the second quarter is that the manufacturing sector actually rebounded. So we expect about an increase of, I think it printed out at 2.0, so a 2% increase in the second quarter on a seasonally adjusted quarter-on-quarter basis. And mining also rebounded to about a 4.2% increase in the second quarter. So the big sectors have increased quite significantly.
How big are those sectors? Because everybody was encouraged, better mining data, well, not as bad as we thought, better manufacturing data came out. But as I understand it, we're still an economy that relies on services, on retail sales, on things like that. Just show me how important those sectors are.
They are significant. Mining and manufacturing are about 20% of our GDP. And so a recovery there does push GDP growth quite significantly. But you're right in terms of trade. Trade was very weak in the first quarter, and we expect it to also recover slightly in the second quarter. We haven't had the second quarter full trade numbers yet. And so once we get those, we'll get a clear indication of how trade has contributed to the second quarter GDP. But on the whole, I think GDP in the second quarter could increase to about 3%. That's significant compared to a contraction of 1.2% in the first quarter.
On trade, retail sales coming out this week, will those be closely watched?
Yes, definitely. So on trade, and also including the manufacturing and mining data number that came out last week.
All right, so 3% is very significant. We saw a contraction in the first quarter. Will it be significant enough to counteract, to ensure that overall for the year, the Reserve Bank looking at 0%, will we see more than that, or could we actually still have negative growth for the year, even if we don't have a recession?
I don't think we'll have negative growth. I think we'll have very low growth, about 0.1%. And that's because we expect the third and fourth quarter to be quite weak. So the second quarter numbers are strong only because it's because of the weak first quarter. So there's been a balancing or a rebound in the quarters that didn't, in the sectors that didn't do well in the first quarter.
We were talking about this, there's so much data, car sales, mining, manufacturing, retail sales, business confidence, a whole lot of indicators. Why are we having this debate? Is it pretty difficult to collate all of that? Because you think if everybody did their own numbers, we'd all come up with the same thing, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers do lag, so some of the numbers don't come out at the same time. And also reading through the numbers takes some time too. So some of them are sentiment driven. So, business confidence and consumer confidence, those are indicators of how the business or consumers feel about the economy, not necessarily something that you can easily model in terms of contribution to GDP. So you have to wait until the three and figures that you get on a monthly basis. So 3 months to make up the quarter for you to then calculate the quarterly number. So you can only get it right at the end, and it takes a while for, let's say, Stats SA to collate the figures before everyone gets to calculate and realize that actually manufacturing has contributed 2% to the quarter.
Okay, so we'll forgive all economists for not agreeing 100%. Overall, is this a moot point anyway? 0% is nothing. When we need to create jobs, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. We need like 5% according to the NDP. And I guess to what extent is this the global scenario weighing us down? And to what extent is it our own problem?
I think to a large extent it's our own problem, because if you look at other emerging markets, they were able to grow faster at faster pace when we were growing not as significantly as our peers. So post the crisis, our peers were growing above 5% and we were below 5%. And so now we find ourselves in a position where we need to start increasing growth, but we are increasing growth in a very tough global environment. And you're right, we cannot grow the economy with 26.6% unemployment. And if you include the discouraged workers, that number is closer to 40%. So if 40% of your working population is not working, there's no way that you can grow the economy by about 5%. When your emerging markets peers look at Brazil, they have unemployment of less than 10%.
And everybody talks about these structural problems. In finality, could I ask you for what you would believe would be a really good idea? Labor laws are often cited. I was thinking, what if we go beyond the youth wage subsidy and just say it is easy to hire and fire young people, but let them get the work experience, because we know that's so important. What do you think we need to do? Because it sounds like we need to do something drastic pretty quickly.
Yeah, I cannot overemphasize the need for education. And, studies have said that an educated population, it's easier to find jobs, it's easier to be skilled, and it's easier to be absorbed and into workplace. And I think that we have been discussing minimum wage, and my controversial, I think, opinion is that minimum wage sometimes protects those who are employed. Now, if you have a few population that is actually employed and a lot that is not employed,
it doesn't get people in.
Exactly. So I think that it would be wise to let people in and get to a point where, let's say, we're 10% unemployment, then we can protect those who are employed.
All right, thank you so much. Tabi Leoka joining us from Argon Asset Management, and I'll have more for you after the break. Stay with us.